Miss Gish has a question.
I hope it's not an impudent one, Monsieur Dali, but have you, from the beginning of your work, your great craftsmanship in painting, a message to give to the people that we perhaps don't understand?
No message.
No message.
No message at all.
Could you invent one?
Impossible. I am against any kind of message.
You are.
Against.
Your paintings have a very dreamlike quality, and I do find them fascinating. I'd like to look
There's
at...
no dream, because it's never dream. It's hypnagogical image.
Hypnagogical image.
Before.
What is that?
It's like 10 minutes before sleep.
Well, does it make any sense to you what I dreamed?
Not yet. You were trying to tell yourself something. What it is, we'll figure out later.
The way the mind relates to reality, action is fundamental. Motor nervous system and the sensory nervous system are massively coordinated, so much of your perception is oriented with action in mind. And of course, as I just said, you can't have your actions without perceptions. There's a psychologist named Gibson who made a lot out of this. Gibson points out that the standard literature is all about people seeing triangles, or it's as if they're looking through the keyhole of a door, and you have all these perceptual illusions that you can design. But in fact, in real life, you don't just see objects, but you see objects that you can act on. You see potential actions when you see an object. And Gibson's jargon for this was affordances. What Gibson says is that basically what you see is an affordance. With all other objects of the kind of useful objects in your vicinity, you see them in terms of the potential actions. You see affordances as opposed to colors and shapes.
Both the sublime and the beautiful are for the mind, And this is something that is really about the body. It's really about the body. So we are dosing the forces. We're dosing the forces in such a way that the body keeps involved or stays involved or is involved in such a way that it starts to move and explore. Now this is very dangerous. This is very dangerous because when you open up an object to action, when you basically move perception to action, right? People just do Pavlovian things because of the pure reactivity, right, of activity.
Testing. 1, 2.
Judge of the main points of my approach to perception, more particularly visual perception, an ecological approach to visual perception. Three main features of this approach. One, a new description of the environment to be perceived. Second, a new optics, which I call ecological optics, to distinguish it from physical optics, and geometrical optics, and physiological optics. And three, a new definition of perceiving. That's what I meant by theory. It's a new conception of what the act of perceiving is, I think, or I will suggest that it is. It's not so much a theory as a paradigm.
One of these affordances is graspability. Whilst on holiday in France last summer, I was lazily sitting in a chair reading a book in the sun. Suddenly, my attention was drawn to movement to one side. I looked down and to my horror saw a large snake advancing towards me. My first instinct was to frighten it away by throwing something at it, and I looked around for a suitable object. Bending down, I picked up some stones and threw them at the snake. According to Gibson, the graspability and throwability of stones was directly perceivable to me. I didn't attempt to pick up and throw the nearby shrubbery or the door of the villa. I was able to perceive which items in my immediate environment were capable of being grasped and thrown without having to consult any previous experience. For Gibson, there is no distinction between sensation and perception. And so we have come full circle, back to our original question. Can perception be explained in terms of sensation?
Paranoid critical activity always has this double element that its content or its message kind of is actually subversive and is an aggressive act directed toward the world, while its medium and the way it kind of imposes it on the world is maximally conservative and even reactionary. And in a way you could see it like Robin Hood in Sherwood Forest, kind of getting money from for the poor from the rich, kind of a subversive activity, but at the same time the success of his actions is dependent on the more or less uninterrupted flow of rich people through the forest. So one can say now that a paranoid critical product is related to the real world in the same way a spy relates to society. To whose collapse he contributes to the best of his abilities.
In this recreational area, rudimentary structures were erected to correct and channel aggressive desires into creative confrontations. The unfolding ego world dialectic generates the continuous emergence of conflicting ideologies. Their imposed coexistence invokes childish dreams and the desire to play. The park is a reservoir of sustained tension waiting to be released, a gigantic playground of flexible dimensions to accommodate the strip's only sport, aggression. Here, conflicts are reenacted, the staged battles dissolve the corrosive hysteria of good manners. On an individual level, the park is a sanatorium where patients recover from remnants of old-world infections, hypocrisy and genocide. The diagnoses provide richer forms of intercourse. The most prominent edifices are the two towers. One is infinite, a continuous spiral. The other, consisting of 42 platforms, has a familiar architectural style. Magnetic fields between these towers create a tension that mirrors the psychological motivations of their users.